and welcome to Thrived Solution. In today's session, we'll be seeing Module 3, which is DAX, abbreviated as Data Analysis Expression. We'll be seeing the introduction to DAX, data types in DAX, and what are the fundamental concepts of DAX. So we'll be covering these three topics in today's session. So let's see the other topic, DAX. What is DAX and different data types and the fundamental concepts? So DAX is abbreviated as Data Analysis Expression. So let's see the introduction. So DAX is a formula expression language and can be used in different BI and visualization tools. It is a collection of functions, operators, and constants used in formulas to calculate and return values. DAX is a functional language containing conditional statements, nested statements, value reference. And the formula of a DAX always starts with an equal sign. Let's see different types of data types in DAX. So DAX programming formula contains two data types, numeric and non-numeric. Numeric includes integers, currencies, and decimals, whereas non-numeric or others, they contain strings and binary objects. Let's see the fundamental concepts of DAX. So there are three different types of fundamental concepts in DAX: syntax, context, and functions. Let's see what is the syntax. So the syntax, it includes functions such as sum, which is used to add figures, and the syntax is not correct, you'll get an error message. For example, we create a measure using the DAX formula. So as we have seen, DAX formula always starts with the equal to sign. So here the measure name is defined as total sales and equal sign is the operator. Sum is one of the aggregate function and sales is the table name and sales amount is the column name. So let's see in depth. So the measure name defined as total sales and the equal sign operator, which indicates the beginning of the formula. When calculated, it will return a result. And the sum is the addition where it makes all the numbers in the sales and the column related to the sales amount column. And the parenthesis, which surrounds an expression that contains one or more arguments. Most functions require at least one argument. An argument passes a value to a function. Therefore, the table name referenced is sales and the referenced column name in the sales table with the argument, the sum function on which the column needs to aggregate a sum. Next, let's see what is the context. So contexts are of two types. They are row context and filter context. Row context comes into play whenever formula has a function that applies filter to identify a single row in a table. And whereas filter, when we have one or more filters are applied in calculation that determines a result or value and the filter context comes into a play. Let's see what are these functions. These are formulas that use specific values, which are also known as arguments, in certain order to perform a calculation. Similarly to perform the calculation of a function in an Excel sheet. Therefore, the categories of functions are aggregator, date and time, information, logical, mathematical, statistical, text, parent or child, and others. Therefore, this Power BI provides an easy way to see the list of all the functions when you start typing your functions in the formula bar, and when you see the list of the functions starting with the alphabet. So let's see in the functions, as we have aggregate functions. There are different types of aggregate functions, as we have the sum x, minimum, maximum, and average. As we know, the aggregate function, which is used to calculate a value such as a count, minimum, maximum, sum, average for all rows in a column or table as defined by the expression. So what does this minimum does? So the minimum gives the smallest value irrespective of the equation passed, and the maximum, it gives the largest value. Coming to the average, it computes the arithmetical mean of all the values, and sum, it adds up all the values in a column or expression. Whereas the sum x, it's an iteration argument similar to sum, but it allows for a more complex calculations to be performed row by row. Whereas sum, it takes the values of all the column. Here the calculation, the sum x, is done by row before summing the result. So it is the most useful when you need to evaluate an expression for each row in a table and then aggregate those values. Let's see the other function, the counting function, which is used to count. So we have the distinct count, count A, count rows, and count blank. What does count? Count, it counts all non-null values. It takes from the table of when you apply, it takes everything. And whereas distinct count, it counts only unique non-null values. And coming to a count A, it takes non-blank entries, which works for numbers and text. And count rows, it counts the number of rows in a table for the analysis purpose. Count blank, it counts all the blank and empty cells or the null entries. Next, let's see what is logical function. As we know, logical functions, they return information about the values in an expression. For example, if the statement is true function, it see whether an expression you are evaluating is true or false. If it is true, it will return a value true. So there are different types of logical functions, as we know, and, or, not, if error. So AND operation, it returns true if both the expression supplied evaluate to true. And OR function, it returns true if any of the expression supplied to its evaluates to true. And NOT, it reverses the Boolean value supplied to it. True is converted to false, and vice versa. And if it checks this expression supplied to it, evaluates to a true or false, and then execute the statements depending upon the result. If error, it is used to catch and handle errors in expression or formulas, returning a fallback value when an error occurs. Now let's see the other function, the text function. So with this function, you can return a string, search for string within a string, or concatenate string values. Additional functions are for controlling the formats for dates, times, and number. So this text function carries some functions like replace, search, upper, lower, fixed, concatenate, exact, length, trim. Replace, it just replace the string. Search, we need to search for the string. Upper, it converts a string to uppercase. Similarly, lower converts a string to a lowercase. Fixed, it gives the fixed length of the string. Concatenate, which is used to join two strings or words. Whereas exact, it compares two strings and return true if they are exactly the same. Length, it is used to find the length of the string passed. Trim, it removes all the white space between the beginning and starting of a given string. Now let's see the date and time functions. These functions in DAX are similar to date and time functions in Microsoft Excel. So DAX functions are based on the date type, data type used by Microsoft SQL Server. So we have different date functions at date, date difference, day, hour, weekend, month, now, quarter, end of month. So date, it gives the current date in the date format, whereas date difference, it is used to get the difference in the number of days between two days. Whereas day, it returns the day of a month as a number from 1 to 31. Hour, it's an hourly base. Weekday returns the day of a week. Month returns the month as a number from 1 to 12. 1 represents January and 12 represents December. Now, which returns the current date and the time of the system. Quarter, it returns the quarter number of a year from a given date. Now let's see what is information function. So information function is like a table or column provided as an argument to another function and returns whether the value matches the expected time. For example, the isError function returns true if the value reference contain an error. So there are some functions like is blank, is empty, is even, is number, is text, is non-text, is error. So is blank, it returns the value as true or false depending upon if the value is blank or not. Is empty, returns true if a table is empty or false if the table contains data. Is even, return true if a number is even, else false. Is number, checks if a value is a number, useful for validation before doing calculation. Is text, checks if a value is text, useful for validating string data. Is non-text, checks if a value is non-text and can be used to validate non-text types like numbers or dates. Is error, checks if a value is an error, helps to handle potential errors in calculations or data transformation. Next, we see the parent and child functions. This function helps users to manage data that is presented as a parent-child hierarchy in the data models. Next, what is relationship function? These functions are for managing and utilizing relationships between tables. For example, you can specify a particular relationship to be used in calculation. For example, there can be cardinal relation as one to one, one to many, many to one, and many to many. Thank you all.